Miss Crystal, we are jumping in. They just returned from a break. We are now on day 10 of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial. So we're going to be watching this live together today. Now, we did hear some testimony this morning from a second officer that had gone in response to a call and had actually seen Amber Heard, and he was testifying that he had seen some redness on her cheeks and her eyes, but they did not take a report. They did not see that there had been some kind of physicality. And so it was a little bit different from Officer Sign's testimony yesterday, which had been, pretty factual. This particular officer seemed to be getting a little annoyed, to be honest, and he was kind of expressing some of his annoyance in the line of questioning. But one thing that he did do is he continued to reiterate through his video deposition testimony that, he had not seen abuse, that he had just been responsive to the call with Officer Signs, and that's where things are at. So we are jumping into this. We are doing this live. It is 8 a.m. over where I am at. I don't know where you guys are checking in, but we will be watching this together. Hello, good morning. So up next, we heard that we have another video deposition testimony coming from another officer. So as of now, these have been video deposition testimonies. That means they're not in person, and so they're not live. This is permitted because this is a civil case. If it was criminal, all of the witnesses would need to be appearing in person. Oh, it sounds like we're coming back. Let me know how you guys can hear this.
All right. Are we ready for the jury then?
And if the volume is at a good level. Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm seeing a lot of blue in the audience today. All right, so everyone is standing because the jury is coming in. This is a normal court procedure. We stand for the judge to come into the courtroom. We stand for the jury to come into the courtroom. Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, your next witness. Okay, Officer Gatlin. Could you spell the last name for me and for the court reporter?
Gatlin.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
William Gatlin, business address 251 East 6th Street in Los Angeles, California, 90014.
How long have you been an officer with the LAPD?
8 years.
And what is your rank?
Police officer 2.
Now, your partner on May 21, 2016 was Officer Diener, is that correct?
Yes.
You were wearing your body cam on
Yeah.
May 21, 2016?
Yes.
When were you first assigned body cams?
Sometime in 2015, I think. I don't remember.
Officer Gatlin, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 6. And I'm going to go ahead and...
The first two officers that testified were wearing face masks. It's nice to see a face.
And this is the incident recall for you and Officer Diener for May 21, 2016 in connection with the call at the Eastern Columbia Building, 849 South Broadway. Now,
I'm gonna see if I can turn up the volume for the court feed. Let me know if this helps, guys.
You're doing.
It means I handle the computer.
Based on the incident recall, when did you arrive at the scene, you and Officer Dina?
We arrived at scene, it looks like at 22:24.
Let me know if that helped at all.
That is 10:24. So when you arrived, do you recall whether there were any other police officers that were on the scene?
I do not believe.
Good morning.
Do you recall whether there was any press on the scene?
I do not believe there was.
Do you recall whether there was any type of public gathering involved?
No.
Was it relatively quiet?
From my recollection, yes.
Did you see very many people in the lobby when you came through?
Not that I remember.
Okay. And then tell me what you recall.
It is playing a little quiet on my end as well. I have it kind of peeked out,
Shown to the elevator.
but hopefully that helps.
I remember we went up the elevator, exited the elevator, walked down the hallway till we found the unit number, knocked on the door, a male answered the door, and at that point, I really didn't know whether this guy is potentially the suspect, if this guy is involved in the altercation, or who this guy was. So we kind of talked to him for a second, and he advised us that the police had already been there. He had a business card from them, and we told him that we still needed to step inside to check on the subject or potential victim, just to make sure that she's okay and that this is indeed related to the previous incident and not a new incident.
Yeah, guys, just let me know if we need any changes.
Returned and caused there's another new issue at hand.
So do you recall that you already knew that that another officer had answered the call, or other officers had answered the call before you got there?
Yes, I already knew there was a previous caller.
And how did you know that?
Just kind of keeping track. When you're on the computer, you kind of are able to keep track of the calls throughout the night and where they're at and what's going on.
And did you know that Officer Sines and Haddon had been the ones who had answered the call earlier?
I believe so.
Okay. Did you speak with Officer Sines or Officer Haddon before you went to the Eastern Columbia building?
No.
I'm going to take you down.
So the attorney we're hearing right now, this is Amber Heard's attorney who's conducting this deposition. She's the one with the very short hair.
Bait stamp numbered LAPD 11. And I'm going to ask you, this is a TOMSG data log. Do you recognize this document?
I've never seen this before. I've never seen one of these documents before.
All right. Do you have a recollection of receiving an administrative message at 22:22:30, which would be 10:22:30, saying incident 4756 is the same incident as yours, 1A1 handled earlier? Doubt she called back.
Let me see if I can get this a little bigger so you guys can see it.
I do not recall getting that message.
Right below it, at 22:23:22, which is 10:23 and change, it shows that your unit responded with Rod, in other words, Roger, to that message. Do you see that?
Yes.
Would that have been you that did that, or would that have been Officer Dina?
Probably me.
We're still hearing
Because you weren't driving
Depp's
along,
case in
so
chief
Yes.
right now, so we haven't moved on to
So
Amber's
does this
case yet.
refresh your recollection of what had been communicated to you and why you knew that someone had already answered this call earlier?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the term cycle of violence?
Yes.
Well, typically, do you make arrests on domestic abuse calls?
Sometimes we do, and sometimes the other party is no longer at scene, and we would just take a report.
Okay. Are there times where they just refuse to cooperate and you just left?
Yeah, but yeah, there are times like that.
You were going to say, but what?
I guess like the totality of the circumstance based on just because someone's uncooperative doesn't automatically mean that we'll just leave. You know, if we're, observe some kind of injuries, or if there's a third party witness that's cooperative, that could lean in, where even if the victim's uncooperative, that we would still take some sort of action.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of questions about what did they do? What did they see?
Page 13 here. And this is the CAD summary report. What, if any, involvement did you have in this?
So I would be the one that kind of closes out the incidents on the computer. So the writings over to the right of the screen would be what I would type into the computer to close out the call.
And so you would have typed in related to previous incident, verbal argument only, checked residence?
Yes.
Who told you that it was a verbal argument only?
Based on the knowledge I had of the previous call, I'm able to see potentially how they closed out the call, and I could have seen it from there.
So you could have gotten this from A1A. 1A1, yeah, their report, Officer Science and Officer Haddon, and then just repeated it here.
Yes.
And Officer Sines, Officer Haddon, those are the police officers who just testified.
In the apartment up in Penthouse 3, saying that there had been a verbal argument only.
Not to my recollection.
Well, let me just jump back to the events of May 21 for a moment. Were you aware that that was the apartment of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard?
No.
When did you first become aware of that?
I don't remember.
Are we talking months, days, hours?
It was a couple days.
And do you remember how you learned of it?
No, I don't.
And did you know who Johnny Depp was at that time?
Yeah.
And were you a fan of Johnny Depp's as of May 21, 2016?
I guess I liked a couple of his movies. I don't know. I'm not like rushing out to go see him or anything. I don't know.
Are you a fan of Johnny Depp's today?
I can remember the last movie I saw of his.
Did you know who Amber Heard was as of May 21, 2016?
I was aware that there was an actress by the name of Amber Heard, but I was not totally familiar with her or any of her work.
When you saw the name Amber Heard on the incident recalls, did it register with you that she was an actress?
No.
Did you recognize Amber Heard when you came to the apartment on May 21, 2016?
No.
How close did you come to Amber Heard while you were in the apartment?
I'd have to say probably between 10 and 15
This is
feet.
being broadcast live, and we're responding in live, watching this together.
It's pretty dim.
Did you ask to see Amber Heard's face in the light?
No.
Did you ask Amber Heard whether she had any injuries?
No.
Did you interview any of the persons present about what had taken place earlier that night?
No.
Why not?
Because I was aware that there's a previous call regarding the incident, and the male that answered the door kind of made it clear to us that this is still left over from that same incident, and a new incident had not occurred. So I didn't feel the need to at that time.
Did you go through and search the entire apartment, including bedrooms, offices, and other areas?
No.
Again, why not?
Same as I explained earlier, and they were all adamant that her husband was no longer at scene.
Did you go into any of the other adjoining apartments?
No.
You asked where the husband was. Why did you ask where the husband was?
Because in the comments of the call, it stated the husband and wife were arguing.
Yeah, you want to know where the husband is. There's potential
And there was
domestic
also a
abuse.
Domestic violence.
Yeah, it's a domestic violence call, and it wouldn't be uncommon for, you know, the male to answer the door to tell us that he's not the husband, and later it turns out that he is. So, you know, we kind of have to talk to the other party involved to make sure that that's not the male that's involved in the argument.
Did any of the 4 people that were in the apartment identify Johnny Depp as that male?
No.
Was there any effort by any of the people in that apartment to get you to press charges or investigate further?
No.
Would you say the people were reluctant to even have you come into the apartment?
It felt that
Don't
way.
break UK law. Don't break any laws.
What occurred that made it feel like that to you? That they didn't want to be in they didn't want you in the apartment?
Just the way that the male was acting to answer the door. He kind of just said, "Oh, let me just go grab the business card from the previous call." And then even still, when we had went inside, it didn't seem like anybody was particularly eager to talk to us.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at Exhibit 1, Defendant's Exhibit 1.
These video depositions are always slow moving. And so if it's kind of, you know,
This is
slow moving for us,
Mail
it's
online
painfully
from
slow for the
July
jury.
2020, and I'm going to go down to the 10th page. What, if any, evidence did you observe when you went to the penthouse on May 21, 2016, that Amber Heard and her friends were attempting to concoct an abuse hoax to set up Johnny Depp to be accused of domestic violence?
None that I can recall.
So Depp's
What, if any, evidence
lawyer,
did you
Adam
see,
Waldman, that's who they're talking about.
Amber and her friends spilling wine and roughing the place up?
None.
And what, if any, evidence did you see that Amber and her friends had concocted and gotten their story straight and were relaying them to you when you arrived?
None.
Did Amber or her friends at any time while you were at the apartment on May 1, 2016, claim that Johnny Depp had committed domestic violence of Amber?
Not to me, they didn't.
Did you see them do that to Officer Diener?
No.
What, if any, efforts did Amber Heard make to come over and to show you any evidence of
So they're
interest?
still going on this line of questioning. Was
What,
this
if
set up
any,
by
efforts did
Amber
Amber Heard or her friends make to try
and
to
or
show
her
you
friends?
any type of property damage?
None.
And what, if any, evidence do you have that Amber or her friends placed a second call to 911?
I don't have any evidence that it was one of her friends. I just know that there was a second call placed.
Yeah, but what we saw from the other
Actually, if
officer's
I can recall, I
testimony
think it said that
is that they did
her
not
friend was
see
on the phone
evidence
with
of domestic
her
abuse.
arguing with her husband.
Who said that?
I believe that's what the incident recall said.
Did you ever provide a sworn deposition saying that you saw no evidence of a crime at the penthouse before today?
No.
Are you aware of whether Officer Diener provided a sworn deposition saying he saw no evidence of a crime?
He has not.
Now this...
Exactly. He's going based off of what he was told.
Which is approximately 8:30 regular time, PM, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then a little bit further down, just 7 minutes later, comes a duplicate call that appears to come from the New York Police Department. So
Yes.
there were roughly 7 minutes of each other, correct?
Yes.
Did you see that when you were looking back at trying to look at the history?
I believe I saw all of this.
Did you see in any of the incident recalls or any of the documentation that you reviewed that the officers, Officer Simonson hadn't reported to the scene, left the scene, closed out, and then another call was made to come to 849 South Broadway?
Yes.
What did you see?
The second call created was the one that we had received.
And it says, this is 2209, which would be 1009, right, roughly?
Yes.
It says, teletype from NYPD ICAP. Female stated she was on the phone with her friend. She began screaming at her husband. Subject Amber Heard, husband Johnny Heard, male, 53 years old, 5'11", NFD, NFI. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
So evidence of a
That's New York
verbal
Police
altercation.
Department, and back here, it says New York Police Department, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But after you communicated down here, on the administrative text messages, and I'm now on LAPD 11, this is 2222, you now know it's the same incident as yours, and 1A1 handled earlier. Doubt she called back, probably just delayed response, correct?
Yeah, this is just a message from another unit. So, I mean, just because they're basically just sending me a message that it's related, you know, it doesn't mean that it's exactly the same call.
By the time you showed up at the door of Penthouse 3 at the Eastern Columbia building, you already knew that Officer Science had handled this call, and you were just double checking to make sure that the perpetrator wasn't there and that everybody was okay, correct?
I was aware that Officer Science had handled a call at that location earlier, but it doesn't mean that I treat it as if it's handled already. We still have to get there and speak to them and make that determination that it's not a completely new incident.
Okay, and you did that, right?
Yes.
And you put in the system for this call. Twenty-one 2046 to 2122. Met with Vic, checked location, verified husband left location. Victim advised verbal dispute and refused to give any further information. Actually, that was Haddon and Sons, right?
That wasn't me.
Yeah, so we keep hearing that.
And what you
There was a
put in,
call,
I couldn't find it.
and Amber would not cooperate, and there was no signs of actual
She
physical,
went there till 3:01, but we talked after.
or that there had been a physical
You
altercation.
put in related to previous incident, verbal argument only, checked residence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your putting verbal argument only was based on what you had reviewed with Science and Haddon, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as defendant's exhibit number 2, and it's a picture, it's a portion of a video clip from the ECD.
I feel like Johnny's tie is very eye-catching.
And the time is
I feel like the ties that he's
22:28.
worn otherwise are a little more
Do you
muted.
recognize the person in this picture?
Yes.
And who is in this picture?
Officer Diener.
Or those
I'm going to ask
butterflies.
you to take a look at defendant's exhibit number 3, and that's reflecting a video clip again, and it's dated 5/21/2016 and says 22/28/15. Do you recognize the person in this?
Yeah, that's me and Officer Diener.
I'm going to show you now the video cam footage. I've got the 2 from yours and from Officer Diener, so I'm going to go through and show those to you.
He looks like he's meditating or something. So of course we're watching. This is the body cam footage when the officers responded to a call.
Hello.
Officers, how you doing?
Doing all right. You guys had somebody come out here earlier
Yes,
already?
we did.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember their names offhand. We have the card inside.
Cyan, maybe? Yeah, we got another call. I don't know if it's related to the same call from earlier or if somebody called again.
Probably.
We just need to check.
One of you guys know someone in New York or something?
Yeah, she probably called twice.
Okay.
She probably called twice.
You just talk to your wife just to make sure it's
Oh, it's not my one.
okay. Whoever it
Different
is.
conversation. If it
Oh,
was.
okay, yeah. Well, whoever it is, you know, we step out, we just gotta check on them, make sure they're all good.
I'll go get the business card from the.
They have to do a safety check.
Yeah, I don't know, just because we got another call and we came again, we still gotta make sure.
Give me 1 second.
Doesn't-
1 second. Back up, please. Back up.
Can we just, we'll just come in and just check. We just need to make sure everybody in here is okay and then we.
So the officers are going to do a visual inspection, likely sweep the
We
premises.
just got another notification. So. We just need to come in and make sure that everybody's okay. Is they're all good? Nobody else is in here?
No. The other officers came by and checked the apartment and the other apartment.
I can't tell who that is. It sounded like Amber.
Okay. Who's Amber? Okay, and Johnny
Is definitely not here.
is not here? Okay.
Left probably like 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Everything's all good then?
Now it's good.
All right.
Thank you.
So if you guys need anything else, just call us back.
Okay, thank you very much.
You have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you, officers.
Yep, thank you. Have a good night.
So this one is defendant's exhibit number 4.
Coffee's hot. Burning up. Word around penthouse 3.
Before we go further, can you show you now you're putting voting and says 22, 28, 15. Do you recognize the person in this?
Yeah, that's me and Officer Diener.
I'm going to show you now the video cam footage. I've got the two from yours and from.
I think they just paused the screen.
Go through and show those.
I don't think he fell asleep.
Okay. So this one is defendant.
But that was video
4.
deposition testimony that we were watching.
Coffee's hot. Burning up. Word around penthouse 3.
Penthouse 3, I feel like that's become famous.
Hey, bye. We're stepping on onto the penthouse.
Yep, there we go.
Before we go further, can you tell whether this one is your video cam footage or it is Officer Diener's?
This appears to be Officer Diener's.
And so that's you over here?
Yes.
Can you tell whether it's you or Officer Diener that's saying Officer Signs?
I cannot tell.
Okay. How did you know that it was Officer Sines who'd been there?
Because I was aware which unit had responded to the call there, and I knew that she was working that unit.
I don't know if it's related to the same call from earlier, or if somebody called again.
Probably.
We just need to check.
One of you guys know someone in New York or something?
Yeah, she probably called twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just talk to your wife, just make sure.
Oh, it's not my one.
Okay. Whoever.
Different conversation.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, whoever it is, I'm step out, we just gotta check on them, make sure they're all good.
I'll go get the business card from the cops.
Yeah, I don't know, just because we got another call and we came again, we still gotta make sure.
Give me 1 second.
Now, would you say, and I'll represent this as Josh Drew, and he's already provided testimony. Would you say that Josh Drew was discouraging you from even coming into the apartment or seeing Amber Heard?
Yes.
I don't know if she called twice.
Yeah, so that's the fellow who answered the door.
We just got another notification. So we just need to come in and make sure that everybody's okay.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. She comes off a little aggressive, which might be a turnoff to the jury.
All right. Officer Gatlin, can you tell which one of these people is doing the talking, of these three girls, women?
I can't tell for sure, but it appears to me it's the girl in the middle. That's the one that's leaning forward with the white shirt.
Do you know which one of these is Amber Heard?
From this view, I can't tell.
All right. Do you know what color hair the person that's the most forward, that's in the middle, has?
I can't tell from this.
Okay. Can you tell what color hair the woman, the furthest right is, that's in front?
Charles,
I
not
can't
sure what you
tell.
mean.
It looks like her head is in a shadow.
Okay. Can you tell what color hair the person?
I think the
that's,
attorney's probably getting to the point of you didn't actually see Amber very well.
Everything
That's probably where
looks
she's
like
going with this line of
the
questioning.
tops of their heads are in shadows.
All right. And you believe that the one to the left is Amber Heard?
No, I believe that that's the one that's doing most of the talking.
I had checked the apartment and the other apartments as well.
Yeah.
It must have been like a double call.
Okay. Who's Amber? You, okay, and Johnny?
Is
Did you see anybody acknowledge that they identify themselves as Amber?
It looks like it was the girl sitting furthest away from me, or furthest away from the camera.
Okay. And how would you describe the lighting in there?
Pretty dim and
Pretty
dark.
dim.
You said
Hard to
earlier you
see,
got
right?
10 to 15 feet away. How much would you estimate now that you are looking at this on body cam? How far away are you from the three women?
I would still say it's in that range.
Did you get a clear look at any of these three women?
I can't remember.
And did you ask to have any of them come out into the lighting so that you could take a better look at them to see if potentially they might have injuries?
No.
What perception did you have about the level
Oh,
of
Penthouse 3, a
cooperation
video
of
game
these
or
four
bad 90s
individuals
sitcom. I got it.
in this call?
Pretty low level of cooperation.
Okay. Now can we bring up exhibit number 5?
They seemed cooperative. They were just seemed disinterested, as if everything was all right. I don't think they've established who that is yet. Obviously, there's some kind of access code or key code needed in order to access that floor.
Coffee hot. Burn it up. We're in route to Penthouse 3.
All right, so this is the body cam from the other officer. Same incident.
Earlier, or if somebody called again, probably. We just need to check. When you guys know someone in New York or something? Yeah, she probably called twice. Okay. Yeah. Can you just talk to your wife and make sure? Oh, it's not my wife. Different conversation. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, whoever it is, man, it's about, you gotta check on make sure they're all good. I'll go get the business card from the cops. Yeah, I don't know, just 'cause we got another call and we came again, we still gotta make sure.
That's a pretty cute dog. Oh my goodness. Is that a little Norwich Terrier? So the other officer said Amber's the one sitting furthest, and it looks like she's behind this brunette in the front. It's very hard to hear. The audio from the court is pretty low.
Everything's all good then? Alright. Well, if you guys need anything else, just call us back. Have a good night.
Yeah, and I don't know what the expectation is, right? The officers go in, everyone confirms verbally everything's okay. I think Amber's attorney is saying, no, you should tell them they have to get up and you have to visually inspect them. I don't know that that's part of their protocols. Or appropriate. Right? If someone was asking to give me a visual inspection, I have to go and twirl. But I don't know. Indeed.
Now showing you defendant's exhibit number 5.
Oh, number 5. We heard exhibit 500, 300 yesterday.
Just stop you for a minute. Does this appear to be the video cam from your video cam?
Yes.
Talking hot. Burning up. We're in round 10 health 3.
All right, so I don't know if we're going through this now a third time from the third officer's body cam, but that's what I think is happening. Not actually seeing something. Court, what's going on? Put it on the screen. We're hearing a lot of walking. All right, so they're talking to Joshua again, the guy who answered the door. Let's see if we can hear the dogs. I don't know if they actually barked. This is one of the responding officers to a second call the following day that there had been an initial call. An inspection, the officers testified. They didn't see any signs of physical abuse or domestic violence, so they didn't take a report and they left. So the next day, there was another call. And there were 3 officers that we've now... Well, 2 we've seen body cam footage from. The other one we're just listening to for some reason. Yes. We're getting a real-time reaction from this officer.
Just stopping here again on these three women. You had indicated before the woman that's leaning forward here that she's in the middle. Is that correct?
It appears that way.
And you think she's the one who did most of the talking, correct?
Yeah, right now she was the one talking.
Okay. And you believe that Amber is the one in the back behind her?
Yes.
Are you able to see the right side of Amber's face?
From this camera view, it looks like she's kind of facing straight towards me. So I would have been able to see the right side of her face from there.
Would you have been able to see it clearly?
Due to the low lighting, probably not very clearly.
Okay.
Johnny
Is definitely not here.
is not here? Okay.
That's probably like 2 hours.
Okay. All right, cool.
While we're still there, can you tell how much hair Amber has covering the right side of her face in the pictures?
No, looks like from this camera view, most of the time, like half of her head is blocked from the woman in front of her.
Can you tell whether she's wearing?
Yeah, this was from when they were together and they separated, officially divorced in 2016, I believe.
Everything all good then? All right.
Yeah, they're playing the audio from the body cam.
Have a good night.
Do you recall looking for any injuries in the faces of the three women?
No.
This guy's testimony seems a lot less. Oops, why these come up? Seems a lot less hostile
Now,
than the previous officer.
Gatlin, do you recall seeing two dogs in the house?
Yes.
They were running around pretty freely.
We did
Yes.
see that.
And when you say that, would you be able to, sitting here today, say that the person in these three photos, defendants 7, 8, and 9.
So the jump
is the
cut that
same
just
person
happened
sitting
is
on
because
the
there was
sofa
some kind of
in the back?
objection
Would you be able
to something in
draw
his
that connection?
testimony, so they took it out.
No, I don't recall.
Do you disagree with my description of what's in this picture?
No, I was stating that I didn't observe that when I was inside the apartment.
Are you able to testify whether Amber Heard was the victim of domestic violence by Mr. Depp on May 21, 2016?
Based on our investigation, it appeared as if she was not.
Your investigation of what?
Based on her
Visual
refusing
observation,
to
what she said.
give any statement on what had occurred. And at the time, we did not observe any any visible or verifiable injuries to her.
The attorney's point is, how could you see? And did you see?
Anything else?
Not that I can recall.
Right. So did you interview any of the three other individuals in the apartment?
No.
Did you ask any of the individuals to give you a statement about what transpired?
I believe the female that was sitting in the middle of the three
If you were born
told us that everything was fine and that the other officers had already conducted an investigation on the incident prior to our arrival.
Did you ask that individual to give you a statement?
Outside of that, no.
Did you take that individual aside and try to interview her without the others present?
No.
Why not?
As I just stated, everybody there had told us that the officers who had responded a couple hours before us had conducted the investigation, and this is our call is still stemming from that incident, and there had been no change in the circumstance since then.
Do you know whether Officer Science and Officer Haddon took any of the individuals aside and interviewed them?
No.
I think they're almost done. He was supposed to go for about a half an hour. So we should be nearing the end of this.
To come forward and examine her in the light to see if she had any injuries.
What panda bear?
No.
Did you take a flashlight just to see if she had any visible injuries to her face or her body?
No.
Did you ask Amber Heard if she had any injuries?
No.
I'm asking whether you're in a position as a police officer to testify under oath that Johnny Depp did not commit any abuse of Amber Heard on May 21, 2016.
I don't believe I'm in the position to testify whether he did or did not, because I was not there when the incident potentially occurred.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And you didn't conduct your own independent investigation, correct?
Outside of the female telling us that everything was fine, and the male that answered the door had told us that the other officers had already came and talked to everybody, and she told us they checked both the two apartments. So I felt at that time was sufficient that, as I stated, there's no change in the circumstance from the previous call. So we did not go further into investigation.
And that's the extent of your investigation, correct?
Correct.
Did you do that night on May 21, 2016? Did you do anything other than what we have looked at on the video camera in connection with investigating whether Johnny Depp committed domestic violence with Amber Heard on May 21,
Probably not.
2016?
No.
Do you know whether Johnny Depp committed domestic violence of Amber Heard on May 21, 2016?
No.
Sorry, your next
Oh,
witness.
that's funny.
Alejandro Romero.
I think that's my screensaver. I think it popped up for a second. So that's what's on my computer right now. I have a panda
And
bear
if I might,
picture.
Your Honor, this is another one that begins with questioning by counsel for Ms. Heard and later on switches to questioning by counsel for Mr. Depp.
Okay, thank you.
Romero, will you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Alejandro Romero. I go by Alex.
What is your current occupation?
I work at the front desk of the Eastern Columbia building.
And is that for the Action Property Management Company?
That's correct.
How long
So
have you
front desk
been
manager.
employed at the Eastern Columbia building?
Approximately 13 years.
And could you please describe what kind of work you do for the Eastern Columbia building?
Most of it is just access control, and I deal with
Johnny's kind of smiling.
regarding their packages and food deliveries.
Okay. And have you done that pretty much the whole 10 years?
That's correct.
I'm going to take you back to 2015 and 2016.
So he's been doing that job as a front desk manager for 10
How
years.
many people would you say would go through the building on any particular day in that time? We're talking tenants and visitors.
I cannot say a number because there's 147 units in the building, and there are visitors, guests, friends.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Actually, we used to send delivery people out. We don't send it anymore because of the COVID. But I cannot tell you.
We did hear testimony about that.
People probably.
Have you ever met Johnny Depp?
I saw him a couple of times.
Okay. Do you remember what Mr. Depp was wearing on any of those occasions?
Nope.
Do you remember what jewelry he had on?
Nope.
Do you remember what headgear he was wearing? If he was wearing a scarf or a hat?
No.
Do you remember whether Mr. Depp was wearing any makeup or eyeliner? On the
Nope,
time?
I don't remember. Nope.
You couldn't tell me one way or the other, right?
No.
I find this guy
Do you
kind of
know
pleasant.
Whether Mr. Depp had ever been physically violent with Amber Heard, and by this I mean hitting, punching, throwing objects at her, kicking her, headbutting her. You know one way or the other whether Mr. Depp ever did that to Ms. Heard?
Nope.
I'd be surprised if this guy observed any of
See
that.
Mr. Depp
Had it happened.
slam things around or be angry?
No, I have never seen him like that.
I'm going to ask you some questions now about Amber Heard. When did you first meet Amber Heard?
I believe she was dancing on the lobby. I met her at the front desk. I interact more with her sister, Whitney, I believe that's her name, and her good friend, Rocky.
I like that he's testifying in his car.
I only see him like once in a while when she was sometimes used to get packages.
Do you recall whether Ms. Heard became a resident sometime around March 2016?
So that she moved in,
Could you tell me one way or the other?
is what the attorney's asking.
I just can't remember. Like I said, it's been so long, I just don't remember. And like, I know you guys sent me the papers to review, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't want to review them because it's been so long. It's like, just don't want to deal with this anymore.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, I went through the witness statement, and it's everything.
It's very
that's written
honest.
there, that's what I said.
And,
That was correct. That was accurate.
okay.
That's why I signed it.
So during the time between 2015 and 2016, how many times would you say total that you interacted with Amber Heard?
For a whole year, I can give you a number. Because it could be like, probably I probably saw Amber for 3 times in one day. Probably I'll see like 5 times, or probably I will never see him for a whole week. So I don't have like.
I don't know how long his testimony is going to go for. I'm just wondering how relevant this is.
How would you describe Amber Heard's interactions with you? Were they friendly?
I mean, unless he can say he saw a bruise on her or something like that.
She was really friendly. She always smiled. But we never had like a interaction as
I think we've all
really
slammed
close
some
relationship,
cabinets in our day.
like I do with some of the other residents. She never told me anything of her problems. She never stopped by and talked about her personal life. She never did that.
They're asking you about a date that you recall seeing Amber Heard on May 25th, 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you said, probably I just can't remember the days. I've got a really bad memory for dates. Did you see that?
Yep.
I'm assuming he's on his phone right now. I had someone testify in one of my trials in his car on his phone, just like this.
What type of clothing Amber Heard was wearing from one of her events?
Nope, I don't remember.
Would you remember on any daily basis what type of hairstyle she was wearing?
Nope.
Would you remember on any type
Yes,
of
Kelsey,
basis,
that's Amber Heard's attorney
what
talking.
type of bag Amber Heard was carrying?
No.
Would you be able to say whether Amber Heard was dressed up or casual on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say?
Yeah, this guy isn't remembering
whether she was-
anything.
What type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say, for example, whether Amber Heard?
So I'm
wore
confused why they're
concealer
using
or
this
foundation
testimony.
on any given day?
We'll see where it goes, but I'm
Would
not
you
sure
be
this is
able to
helping
say
either side,
whether
because he
Amber
doesn't
Heard
know
had
anything or he doesn't
on
remember
blush
anything.
Or powder on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say whether Amber Heard had a mascara or eyeliner on any given day?
No.
How about eyebrow pencil or lip pencil?
No.
Do you have any memories of Amber Heard wearing a particular type of makeup with a type of outfit?
No.
If
We're
you
still
were
in Johnny's
asked
case. I don't
to
know.
describe,
I'm wondering where this is going, but
characteristics of Amber Heard from 2 days
maybe there's
earlier
something to
without
that.
knowing you were going to be asked, would you be able to testify to any of those? What she was wearing, what her makeup was, what her hairstyle was?
No, I probably won't remember.
When is the first time that you recall anyone saying anything?
Yeah, exactly,
to
but
you
this is
about
pre-recorded.
Police being called at the EC building.
So why
because
use
of
it
a
at
domestic
trial?
dispute between Mr. Depp
Maybe it's
and
going
Amber
somewhere
Heard?
though.
Well, to answer your question, whatever happened, it happened on a Saturday. I don't work Saturday. When I got there on Monday,
This is Johnny's witness.
they asked me, "Oh, you heard what happened?" And I said,
Thanks for being
"No,
here.
What happened?" So that's how I find out. Then I went to the cameras and see what was going on. Then as soon as I saw Johnny Depp on the camera on the elevator, just walking back and forward on the camera in the elevator, I said, "Okay, I know that was him," and that's all I knew. But I was not there on that Saturday when that happened. I believe that whatever that happened, they say it happened, and when they called the police, I believe it wasn't a Saturday, and I was not there.
Okay.
He was not
Do
there
you
when they called the
recall
police.
Who told you that on that Monday following the Saturday?
Okay, Don, as a matter of fact, I think it was one of the residents that they approached to me, and they said there was a lot of noise because the person was working out on the gym that's next to the penthouse. They heard a bunch of noise, and that's it. And that's why I checked the camera. And when I looked at the cameras and I saw Johnny, like I said, was just walking back and forward in the elevator. And I said, like, okay, all right, okay, no, I'll try to figure it out. And I didn't
Good
say
point.
anything more. I turned off the camera, and that's it.
So the first part of that, somebody was working out and heard noise?
Someone was working out on the gym and heard the noise. They heard a lot of noise on the hallway. Because it's really rare to hear anything because most of the time the penthouse level is really quiet.
Okay. Do you remember who the person was?
It's
at the
quiet, so it's
gym
hard to hear.
That heard a lot of noise in the penthouse that night?
That's
Maybe it's
correct.
hard to
I do
hear if they're like
remember the person.
reinforced walls.
Who is it?
I remember the person has been a resident in the building for a long time. I just don't remember.
Not yet.
I don't remember her name.
And where is the gym in comparison to?
But we can talk about that on the break.
penthouse that's owned by Mr. Depp?
Like I said, Johnny Depp owns all the penthouse on below the clock. The gym of the Eastern Columbia building is just in front of one of the penthouses. You actually could see it through the window.
You can see the gym through a window of the penthouse, or you can see the penthouse through a window of the gym?
You could see the gym through one of the windows to the penthouse, and they have a patio that leads to the gym. Penthouse has a patio that leads to the gym.
Okay. And this tenant, if you think of her name while you're, even if we're asking other questions.
Oh, okay. That
please
makes more
let me
sense.
know. This tenant, this is a resident there, right? That saw this?
Yeah, I believe her name is Shauna.
And so she told you she heard a lot of noise.
That's correct.
Did she describe anything, voices, any objects, anything like that?
No, she just said it was a noise. Just noise. And she was just surprised because, like I said, it's always really quiet.
Okay. And so she wanted to know what happened. And so you went to the video cameras to look at video. How did you know when to look for them?
Because she got the time. She got the time that she was working out. That's why I figured out to track the time on the camera and look. And then when as soon as I saw, like I said, Johnny Depp walking back and forth in the elevator, I turned off the camera and I figured out, okay, this is what happened.
Well, remember, maybe the point is that he didn't see anything, and so it's a negative inference. He didn't see anything, so nothing happened. Maybe.
What did you figure out had happened?
I figured out that's why they called the cops. the police.
Because why?
Because of the noise that was on the penthouse level.
Mr. Romero, I'm going to ask you to look at, this is a video clip marked as Romero Exhibit number 8.
You can testify to things that you heard, that you observed. Yes, there might be some hearsay issue, but if it's something that you personally heard yourself, you can testify it to generally. We saw this footage early in the trial. We see Johnny, I think he takes off his coat. I think he takes off his hat. When they were just trying to establish Johnny just kind of comes and goes and what his normal course of conduct is and what we typically see when we do see him coming and going, which is, again, negative inference. We don't seeing him being aggressive and throwing things or fighting.
And it shows a date and timestamp near the bottom. Do you recognize this as the elevator at ECB building?
That's correct.
Mr. Romero, you're nodding. Is this the video that you remember looking at after Shauna told you that she heard the noise that night?
That's correct.
And that's Mr. Depp.
Correct.
Do you recognize the other two men in the elevator?
I recognize the guy in front of the elevator button. That's his personal bodyguard. The other guy, I've seen him before, but I never interact with him. If I did, I don't remember.
You said he looked agitated.
Yeah, he looked agitated. Like he was walking back and forward. He took his jacket. His body language was different than before. Most of the time, he's really calm. He's just like really happy person.
Most of the time, very calm, very happy.
And then you go to the next, so then you say Wednesday, May 25th. At approximately 10:30, Ms. Heard walked into the lobby accompanied by Ms. Raquel Pennington. That's the person you called Rocky earlier. Do you remember her?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you said that Ms. Heard approached you to ask you for the key to her unit, which you gave. And you said we did not discuss anything else at that time.
Correct.
And Ms. Heard stood approximately 3 feet away from you. I did not notice any bruises.
This is a pre-recorded video deposition.
Injuries of any kind on Ms. Heard's face. Do you see that?
So it's not live, it's just being played live.
Okay. But you weren't looking for bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries on Ms. Heard's face that night, were you?
I was not looking for any marks or bruises or anything. But something like that, it will be really noticeable. But I guess, I was not looking. I was more focusing on what my job duties was, like getting the key, and also this.
Yeah, I mean, if he's handing a key, he's in close proximity to Amber.
I was talking with Raquel because her dog got out of her unit. And that was one of my concerns. I was told, you know what, I saw your dog was outside. You didn't want me to get too close to it. So it's still out there. On the penthouse area, the dog will be fine because it's not, like I said, it's always really quiet. And Mr. Depp owns everything up there, so it'll be fine. So that was one of my concerns. That was my job. I was just taking care of that. I was not trying to say, oh, let me see your face. No.
So, and that's where I'm gonna follow up. Do you remember what Ms. Heard was wearing that night?
Nope.
Do you remember whether she was dressed up?
No.
Do you remember where she was coming
Yeah, I
from?
mean, there
when
can
she
be
was
marks
coming
on other
into the
places, not
building
just the
at night
face,
with
right?
Ms. Penny?
That maybe are
No,
covered by
because
clothing.
They didn't mention to me. She was on the phone. She was with Raquel in front of me. We were talking about it, and then she left to the lobby, where she was still on the phone.
So
And
you
I was focusing more on Raquel.
Core TV is
because she was
good. They
the
just
one
have a lot
I
of
was telling
breaks
about her
and
thoughts.
commercials.
Okay. Do you remember what hairstyle Ms. Heard had that night?
Nope.
Do you know what type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing that night?
No.
Can you tell me whether she was wearing concealer or foundation?
No.
Could you tell me whether she was wearing blush?
No.
Could you tell me whether she was wearing any kind of eye makeup?
No.
So who wrote the sentence, "I did not notice any bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries of any kind in Ms. Heard's face"?
I'm pretty sure if I would have said something like that, I would have said something.
Mr. Romero,
I didn't saw any marks.
Yeah, most of the men, when they get asked these questions about makeup, they seem to kind of chuckle.
She was just
Like, how would they know?
I'm asking specifically, I did not notice any bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries of any kind to Ms. Heard's face. Who wrote that?
That's what I said. I didn't saw any marks or bruises on her face. That's what I said.
But
Because they asked me if I remember seeing anything, and so I just don't recall seeing any marks or bruises because she was just sitting in front of me. I just don't remember seeing anything. Just don't remember. But how it would have been so obvious, like someone had like a black eye, I would have like, whoa.
Right.
You know,
But obviously there are injuries that aren't that obvious.
It's something that you
And that can be covered.
You will see. You're like so noticeable, like you will remember. But when I was there talking to her, she was like 3 feet away from me. She was right in front of me. I just don't remember seeing any marks, bruises, or anything.
But you don't know whether she was wearing makeup to cover it, do you?
No, I don't know. No.
He seems very just honest and believable in what he's saying.
You know, the probably would cover any bruise, but you cannot cover the swelling.
Were you looking for swelling?
No. Like I said, I was not looking for anything.
In fact, you were spending more time talking to Rocky about her dog, were you not?
That's correct, but I gotta have it. When I'm talking to someone, I look into their eyes. And when I was talking to Amber and Rocky, I always look into their eyes. Okay. And I wouldn't notice like any swollen or bruise. Like I said, I would notice.
I think Johnny Depp likes this guy. He keeps smiling.
You can't say that Amber Heard had injuries or did not have injuries that day on the 25th?
I don't remember.
Okay.
And like I said, I would probably remember the swollen.
We already heard from her ex-assistant.
I don't remember.
And you don't remember.
She testified about Amber
right? But do you remember
being abusive towards her verbally.
I remember. I'm really sorry, but I remember. I gotta tell the whole story how they got there. Before they went and get the keys. They come down. They say somebody tried to get into my unit. There's scratches on my door. And like, I'm really sorry, but who will think it's gonna get into your unit because they saw some scratches on the door, like 4 inches above the door, because the dog was scratching the door, was trying to get in, and they thought about someone trying to break into their unit. I said, in my head, I was like, you think someone's trying to get into your unit? There's scratches like 4 inches above the floor and your door. That was the dog trying to get into the unit. And they were so afraid. Oh, somebody was trying to get into my ear. It's like, oh, come on, really? And
I don't know if his attorney is telling him, stop laughing. You have to try not to react to the testimony.
No one was there. So I did that. It's part of my job. Make sure they're safe.
But it's entertaining for us.
I really, I didn't understand why I wanted to do that. Like, oh, I don't know.
That was the actual audience in the court laughing, which the judge is getting pretty annoyed by.
I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this court case. Everybody got problems, and I don't want to deal with this no more. I don't want to put this.
The general sentiment we're hearing from a lot of the witnesses.
The interaction you just
They're over it.
about with Amber Heard and Rocky Pennington, and talking about the dog and going up and checking out the penthouse. None of that was on video footage, correct?
That's correct. We don't have cameras in the videos. Sorry, we don't have cameras at the hallway. We don't have cameras on the hallway.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Romero Exhibit Number 1. It's a deposition that was taken of you on July 19, 2016. Now that's approximately 2 months after the May 21, 2016 incident.
Yeah, not that they can't, but it's just not ideal.
Deposition?
You want to try to remain neutral.
16 probably did. I really don't remember.
Okay. I'm going to take you to page 35. And you were asked, this is the same incident that you're talking about now, okay? And it's talking about, okay, you spoke with Amber at the front desk, later saw her in the lobby, later went upstairs with her. It says the question at line 6. I just want to go back for a second here. You said several times in answer to my questions that you didn't recall seeing any marks on Amber's face. When you say you didn't recall seeing any of those marks, did you mean that you didn't see any marks on her face? And your answer then was, I say that because when I saw Amber, I was not looking to see anything on her face. I was not looking to see anything. Do you recall giving that testimony under oath back at that time, 2 months after?
I think that's consistent with what he said today.
Yes.
Or in this deposition.
I remember, because like I say, I always make eye contact with someone I'm talking to, but I'm not looking to find something like oh, you're making
Right, it's like, do you just assume, just because you see someone, that they're being abused? I think that's fair.
Eyelashes are not even, or I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking at their eyes, and I'm not looking for anything else. But if I see something, I will probably remember.
If you saw something, right?
Yeah, I would have probably would see, like if she had a swollen, like if she was wearing makeup, probably would have seen the swollen. I probably would remember that. But I was not looking for anything. I was like, oh, you know.
How swollen was Amber on the 25th of May? How swollen was her cheek then?
According to the pictures I've been seeing right now that you're showing me, it was pretty swollen. I probably will remember that.
How many days later did you see her from that swelling?
That was on a Wednesday. That was from Saturday to Wednesday.
Right. How many days would it be fair to say that you cannot testify one way or the other whether Amber Heard was domestically abused by Johnny Depp on May 21, 2016?
I cannot say that. I would not agree to testify against anyone of domestic violence because I was not there. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I was not there. I was never there. I was probably hundreds of miles away and got no idea what happened that day.
And do you remember that there was pictures of wine, a glass of wine and bottle of wine, wine stains on the floor outside of the
Yeah,
in
and
the
just
hallway
another
of the
witness
house
that is
on
saying
May 21st,
he came into contact with
2016.
Amber and he didn't observe injury or
I
swelling.
remember talking to Mark. I'm not gonna say it was wine.
All right. Well,
I'm not an expert.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next portion of this deposition contains questions asked by counsel for Mr. Depp.
You sit here today, when you saw her at the front desk on March 25th, you didn't see any bruising, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't see that correct?
That's correct. I didn't see any marks or bruises.
You didn't see any swelling either, did you, Mr. Romero?
That's correct. No swelling
And
at
she was
all.
only 3 or 4 feet away from you, correct?
Correct.
And you were looking right into her face squarely, correct?
Correct.
And the lighting was good at the front desk, correct?
Objection?
Correct.
It was so good that had she had any bruises, swelling, or marks on her face, you would have noticed that, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so one attorney calls the witness,
later
asks the
that-
questions, and the
later
other
that
attorney gets to
same
clean it
day,
up at the
you
end,
testified to this already
which is what we're
today.
hearing.
Later that same day, you went up the elevator with Ms. Hurd and Ms. Pennington in connection with their request for you to check the penthouse, correct?
That's correct.
And during that entire period of time, taking them up to the penthouse, walking through the penthouse, and then finally you leaving and going back to your desk, you looked at Ms. Hurd during that time period, correct?
That's correct.
And you looked her in the face, squarely in the face, correct?
Correct.
He
And
looked
you
her in
did
the
notice that the
eyes,
swelling, correct?
as he said several times.
Correct.
I'm sorry?
Correct. I didn't saw anything.
Did you see any swelling?
Objection?
No.
Did you see any bruises?
Nope.
Did you see any marks on her face of any kind?
No marks at all.
And again, just to repeat, when you were fronted, looking her in the face, did you see any swelling on her face?
Nope.
See any bruises on her?
Nope.
Did you see any marks of any kind on her face?
No marks at all.
And how was the light down when you were at the reception and you were looking at her and didn't see any of this? How was the lighting?
We're going to talk about the makeup
Pretty
on the
good.
break.
It's not
how far
dark
apart-
at all. She was
how
3
far
feet
away?
apart. Approximately like 3 to 4 feet apart.
Were you looking her square in the face?
Correct.
Okay. And when you were up in the penthouse and you were looking her square in the face, how far apart were you from her then?
We actually were pretty close to each other.
He
She
said
was
3 feet
probably
apart.
Just next to me. She was telling me like, go into this room, so I need to pass right in front of her.
And do you recall
Thanks for being here.
seeing any bruises, swelling, redness, or any marks on Miss Hurd's face on May 24th, 2016?
Not seeing anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, the remainder of this deposition of this witness contains questions by counsel for Ms. Hurd.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the video clips that Mr. Depp's attorney showed
Depp's
you.
attorney is sitting there smiling as well.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, Mr. Presidio showed you a number of video clips from May 24th. Do you recall that?
May 24th.
Yes.
Yep. That's Tuesday.
But in fact, you don't recall seeing Amber Heard on May 24th, correct?
I don't remember. I don't even remember what I got for breakfast.
Okay. Well, let's pull up exhibit number 1. Let's stay on page 17. That's a good place. And this is your deposition from July 19, 2016. Do you recall
So we're
that?
getting a better idea of why now they're using this video deposition testimony for
Okay,
Johnny's
and
case.
that's-
That was 3 in the morning.
Okay.
He seems to
And
just be
then here-
reaffirming he didn't see anything, to then imply because nothing had happened
Saturday,
and there'd been no
24th,
injuries.
Did you work that day? No. Did you work Sunday, May 22nd? No. Did you work May 23rd? Yes. On May 23rd, while you were working, did you see Amber at any time? I don't recall seeing her. Question, did you work on Tuesday, May 24th? Yes, I did. And on Tuesday, May 24th, at any time, did you see Amber? I don't recall seeing her. Do you remember that being your testimony 2 months after the events?
Yeah, I just don't recall. I just don't remember.
Okay. And then while we're here, now, Mr. Presidio had you go through a number of video clips and ask you a bunch of questions about whether you saw swelling, whether you saw red marks, whether you saw all kinds of other things. But in fact, I'm going to ask you, and tell me if you need me to bring up the videos and replay them. Can you tell me what type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing in any of those videos?
No, I can't tell you.
Can
I
you
didn't
tell
even
me?
know she was wearing any lipstick.
Can you
I
tell
don't
me?
know.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing concealer
This guy's great.
in any of those videos?
No.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any foundation in any of those videos?
No, I
Can
can't
you
tell you.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any blush in any of those videos?
No.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any powder in any of those videos?
I think in most cases, both sides believe they're going to win. And that's why they're going on with the case and the trial.
What shade of concealer or foundation or powder Ms. Heard uses or used at that time?
No.
Okay. So you don't know whether Ms. Heard was wearing makeup in every one of those video clips, correct?
I mean, Amber's attorney has to ask these questions, right? She has to try to attack the credibility.
Incident was
Is he
May
vaping?
21st, 2016. You saw her the night of May 25th.
I think we just caught him vaping.
Correct?
Correct.
You said that you saw Amber Heard hundreds of times while she was there. Did Amber Heard treat you well, and was she friendly to you in each of these hundreds of times?
Yes. I'm not gonna say no because she was really always nice.
All right, this is my last.
Be nice.
All right, this is my last.
He's
question.
now
You
driving.
testified in response
What is he
to
doing?
Mr. Presidio's questions, that you testified truthfully in all of these occasions. Did you testify truthfully to everything that you testified in response to my questions today?
That's correct.
All right.
I did.
Can you imagine if he got into a car accident as he's trying to give
Right. It's a
testimony?
good time to break for lunch. We'll just break a little early, so just don't talk to anybody, don't do any outside research, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock, okay? Thank you.
All right, so we'll let this play for a second more, and then let's get into the makeup issue. I saw that come up a couple of times as we were going through this. I just like to watch as everyone kind of gets up and they wait for the jury to leave. You have to wait for the judge to leave. And then they'll go on break for an hour. And sometimes we just catch weird stuff with the audience in the back, which of course the majority of the audience are fans for Johnny Depp.
That was a first, I'm sorry.
I will say, Your Honor, that is the most bizarre deposition.
Okay, all right, I've just never seen that before. I've seen a lot of things, but I've just never seen that.
All right, it wasn't just me.
All right, so we will come back at 2. Is there anything preliminary before we get to the next deposition? You'll work through them, and then if I come back at 2, we should be able to take care of it pretty quickly?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. We'll come back at 2 then. Thank you.
There we go. So everyone gets up. They're allowing the judge to now leave. All right, here we'll have that keep playing over there on the side. Yeah, guys. So this is, I mean, that last video deposition was definitely something. As far as everyone just kind of reacting afterwards. I mean, that was the most bizarre thing that we have ever seen. Some stuff stuck out to me as well because I'm watching this and this guy's like drinking. I think I think he was drinking like a Sprite or something. He seemed to be vaping. He started driving at the end as well. So let's recap a couple of things and drop any other questions that you have as we're kind of going through this. The judge is looking a little tired. I'm sure she is, guys. We're in week 3 now. We're in week 3, but in between everything that is happening, all these exhibits have to be dealt with. So the fact that we're watching video depositions, you notice that everything's been edited, right? So there's jump cuts of different portions of the video testimony, and a portion of that is because there's been, for example, some objections. There's been some things that had to be removed. And so that's why we're, not seeing the deposition in its entirety. But, it's still a long kind of process, right? 30 minutes, 40 minutes for the police officers' video deposition testimony. And, it's kind of slow moving. It's not like some of these in-person witnesses that we've seen, like Isaac, right? The childhood friend of Johnny, Miss Curry yesterday, right? We're seeing the forensic psychiatrist or psychologist, and we're seeing, this more animated kind of testimony that's easier to watch. So let's go back over. Does her lawyer really want to go into details about makeup? Seems like this could backfire somehow. So when we saw Amber's attorney cross-examining, for example, Isaac, Johnny's childhood friend, and really doubling down on these questions. You don't know, was Amber wearing foundation on particular days? Was she wearing concealer? Was she wearing a blush? Had she applied this certain type of cream, which is supposed to help with bruising? And, at one point, Isaac had laughed in the same kind of way that Alejandro did as well. I'm just like, why would I know that? How could I possibly know that? But it doesn't mean that the attorney doesn't have to still ask these questions because they're relevant. And her job is to try to attack the credibility of these witnesses so that, maybe the jury will not weight their testimony as much because maybe there's bias, for example, maybe because there's a bias of their men. What do they know about makeup? How could they possibly know if someone has applied some kind of color correction to hide a bruise? So as far as, when it goes into the makeup conversation, there was this palette, and we talked about this a couple days ago. So the Milani Cosmetics palette that Amber Heard's attorney with the very short hair, we heard her on those video depositions. So, in her opening statement, she had held this palette, which had a couple different colors in it. And for those of you who maybe are not familiar with color correcting makeup palettes, they will have hues like green. And green is applied to red marks, such as blemishes, to then neutralize the color. And then you put a skin tone, concealer or foundation on top of that. So it's a nice way that we can try to hide certain blemishes. And so their allegation is, Amber Heard was covering her bruises that she incurred as a result of the abuse that Johnny was inflicting on her for the majority of their relationship. And she was using this particular palette. And then what happened was that this cosmetic company posted a video on TikTok that ended up going very viral. And it basically was just saying, we didn't even release this particular palette that they're alleging Amber used until after they'd already divorced, right? So how could she have possibly used this throughout their relationship? And so they're going to have to deal with that. We have not crossed that bridge yet. I think it's probably going to come up from Johnny Depp's attorneys when they are cross-examining Amber. Her attorney might try to draw the sting. That's a tactic that attorneys will use. So they will try to address a bad fact and kind of explain it away before, the other side can do a gotcha moment. The company came out, said that they have no records of her buying any product at that time, especially the fact that the product was even out at that time. Yeah, I don't know if they would have specific records of, who bought the product, right? I think they have credit card numbers at best and purchase orders. But that is what they did. They came out and they said this product was not even in distribution. Now, how can Amber's attorney, address this and kind of step back from it a little bit? They can come back and say, well, there's a million types of these products that have the various colors for color correction, such as the green, such as the orange to color correct, let's say a bruise that's now turned a little more purple. And, so I misspoke, whoopsies. But when you have the attorney speaking very assertively, confidently saying, this is the palette, that's not great, because it kind of, now makes us look like we either don't know our facts or we weren't being truthful to begin with, which is not great. So, as far as everything that we have seen from this morning, we are on break for an hour. And I'm going to keep covering this. This is the first time that I've kind of jumped on live. I've been giving you guys recaps because I have been watching this. I am a real lawyer. I run a law firm, and so kind of breaking away a little bit from my normal schedule to do this, but to be with you guys. And this has been interesting, and I like getting your feedback. We watched the body cam from 3 different officers, right? So 2 of them were different angles, and the third, for whatever reason, they were not actually playing the video on screen. We were just listening, but obviously it was the same event. And just seeing that on the second instance that the police had gone to Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's apartment, what had happened? Is everyone okay? Yes. Is Johnny Depp here? No. And we heard a friend of Amber's say he's been gone for a few hours. And then the line of questioning was, well, did you see any bruises on Amber? Did you see any injury on Amber? And while the police officers pretty consistently said no, and in fact, even on that first visit, right? So we had heard from the 2 officers that had gone on location for that visit, we did not even take a report, because it's procedure that we take a report if we suspect there's been some kind of physical violence. All we believe that had happened is that there had been a verbal altercations. That's what we were told. And then, of course, Amber Heard did not want to cooperate, right? So that's a piece here. She didn't, as a potential victim, didn't want to cooperate. Now, on the other side of this, right, sometimes we have these things happen, and a victim who has been the victim of domestic abuse doesn't want to cooperate. That's not unusual. But as far as the isolated, what happened, what did the police see, and what did they end up reporting or not reporting, that's what we heard. And the consistent kind of, follow through or callback to that was, we didn't see any injury on Amber Heard. Now, we did hear a couple of times these questions about, well, what about the wine in the hall? Did you guys see the wine in the hall? So I'm assuming that there had been maybe some spilt wine or some red liquid that was in the hallway. And I think what the attorney was trying to do was to just show that maybe the police officers weren't paying attention to kind of the details, right? So that's where the questions came up of, well, how well could you, for example, if you didn't see the stuff in the hallway, what was Amber wearing? What was her hair like? And so trying to really challenge their memory of, what did you actually see? And could you even see, right? So with that second visit, the questions of, well, weren't they kind of sitting in the dark? And, the officers were honest, and no, maybe perhaps it was a little bit difficult to see, but I was close enough that I didn't see any injury. It looked like Amber was looking at me straight on. And then, from the first visit, there was a lot of focus on the fact that Amber had had some pinkness on her cheek, as well as in her eyes. And the police officers, basically said, yes, we saw that. It looked like she had been crying. And especially with the second officer, the male officer that we heard this morning, he was getting a little annoyed, in fact, with just the repeated question, and just saying, she may have just been crying because her dog died or something happened. I don't know the answer to that. It didn't look like there was some kind of injury to her face. It just looked like she had been crying. All right, let's go back to the comments. Good question. So is Heard still withholding evidence and data? So there were some issues that came up as far as the housekeeper, Mr. Ben King. So Mr. Ben King, he has this lovely British accent. He was just very like, if we all could have house managers, this is the guy that you would want. He had worked for royalty. He had this great backstory. And they were challenging him on, you haven't disclosed all the pictures that were requested for this trial. And they didn't really get to the bottom of it one way or another, but I guess there were some pictures that he did not disclose. But the question was, why were they going so hard on that? When in fact, it was Amber Heard who also has not disclosed requested photos. And I guess there are pending motions on that issue. So to answer your question, yes, there is allegations that she has withheld certain images. Layla, they kept grilling that Romero Alejandro about her makeup when most men don't even know what half those products are or notice when any women are ever wearing them. Yeah, I don't even know that I know half of makeup products, quite frankly. And, obviously not to be sexist, right? So we still have to ask the questions because just because you're a man, just because you're a woman, it doesn't mean you know or don't know certain things. But it did seem that as the questions were being asked, that the men had a tendency, including Mr. Romero, that he didn't know. And that's why he kind of chuckled or he was smiling here and there. But she has to ask the questions, right? In order to advocate for your client, you have to do everything in your power to try to draw out any potential bias, right? So the fact that, who pays this guy's bills, right? Is his job at risk if he goes up and says terrible things about Johnny? And so to try to paint, is there a potential for a bias here? And then on top of that, I mean, you have a girlfriend, right? So potentially, you have a girlfriend, you have a wife, you have a significant other, whoever it is. And if that person potentially wears makeup, wouldn't you have some kind of context of what makeup looks like? If you were standing 3 feet in front of Amber, wouldn't you know if she's wearing some makeup or not? Now, look, I mean, I think the point is that there's very realistic, natural looking makeup, but some people can still tell, right? You can still see foundation. You can still kind of see that glimmer when someone has makeup on. But could he possibly know in a quick exchange? Now, he talked about having hundreds of interactions, right? So we heard that he has been the front office manager, and I think it was 10 years. Yeah, so for the front desk manager, and he's been doing that for 10 years. So, obviously that's not how long Amber and Johnny have been together, but for the relevant periods that he would cross paths with them very often as they were coming and going from their apartment suite. Yeah, but bruises and cuts, swelling would be obvious. It depends on where we're at. And the attorney was trying to focus on that. And I think she put the time period of there was an allegation of an incident on a Saturday. And then Alejandro had seen Amber on a Wednesday. So, how long does it take for some swelling to dissipate? And at what point is the swelling pretty minimal? Right. So I've had different things done, like as far as like wisdom teeth removal or something like that, on the face, and that you'll experience pretty severe swelling. But how long until it starts to dissipate and it's hard to see? Right. So if you have bruises, the allegation is, well, you can cover those bruises with makeup, but if it's like an open wound, right, wouldn't there be a scab? Those are significantly more difficult to hide, but it doesn't mean that the injuries are on the face. Right? So let's say abusers have a tendency to know where to hit because they don't want those injuries to be seen. And so if it is on the body somewhere, is it simply covered by clothing? Now, as far as what Amber seems to be alleging, and or her attorneys are kind of discussing and questioning of the police officers are, well, these red marks weren't just her crying. It was actually because, allegedly what? She was slapped. So we are talking about potential injuries to the face. While they might be elsewhere on her body, that's why we're kind of hyper focusing on her makeup. And something we're going to hear from Amber when she gets up and testifies is her use of makeup. What does she do? What products does she use? And that's probably where we're going to get into the issue of Milani Cosmetics. Are you referring to Mr. Alejandro and the fact that he was vaping? I don't know what he was smoking. Here's the thing. In the progression of he was vaping something, and then he started to drive. The fact that he was driving during a video deposition was just amazing in itself, but the fact that he was smoking something beforehand as well, not great. And I'm kind of surprised that the attorney didn't address that, to be honest, because if it was me, I would say, Alejandro, do you think that maybe you should not drive in this moment? We'll be wrapped up here in just a few minutes for your safety. Please pull over. I think I can see a woman put makeup on in front of me, and 2 seconds later, I won't be able to recall. Fair enough. So guys, just as a point of reference, yesterday I was at the office and you can see I have this very minimal kind of cat eye that I do. And it's just something that I usually do on a daily basis. I wear pretty minimal makeup, but I am wearing some makeup today, right? And yesterday, my legal assistant had noticed, and he said, "Oh, I like the cat eye. Looks nice," as if it was something new that I had done. And I did it a little bit differently yesterday, so it stood out. But the point is, I actually do my makeup very similar to this on a daily basis. So that does go to, you're talking to someone who maybe is not really paying attention. They're just kind of looking in your eyes and seeing you on a regular basis. And so they just become familiar with how you generally look and maybe might not be able to call out the fact that you are, in fact, wearing makeup. Doing great. Thank you for being here. This is our first day actually doing this live and watching live together. So, because again, I am an attorney, I run an entertainment law firm. We're pretty busy during the day, but because I'm watching this anyway, I figured let's just jump in and be together, watch it together. But I have been doing recaps at the end of a lot of the days. I did like a full trial recap a few days ago. So if you guys want to watch those later, please be sure to check them out on this channel. And we're going to keep following this together because this has been a lot of fun. But the way she describes the injuries, I don't think it's easy to cover behind makeup. I mean, look, if you are experiencing pretty severe swelling, then you would imagine that there had been a high trauma event that happened. And so that there would be, for example, a very large bruise that had kind of welted and there was swelling. But, over the course of several days, how long does it take for a bruise to start to dissipate? So that's where Amber's testimony about the different stages of the bruises and how she was applying the makeup to cover those bruises. And look, we have not heard from Amber's witnesses either. So I'll be curious to hear, for example, if she calls a witness that was her makeup artist, the person other than Amber Heard herself who was applying Amber's makeup on a daily basis, and whether she will be able to corroborate, what I'm trying to say. She'll be able to affirm what Amber Heard is testifying to, as far as I had bruises, I had to cover them, and these were the strategies that we were using to cover the bruises. Didn't she claim she got hit by Johnny's rings? Those are big and detailed. If you get, yes. I mean, look, one of the questions asked of Johnny, aren't you a lot bigger than Amber? Right. So basically, wouldn't these be pretty, significant injuries if you were to hit Amber, or, to the extent that you're saying that you guys kind of got into it physically and you're trying to restrain her and there was a headbutt incident and they were asking Johnny, you headbutted Amber, correct? And Johnny, in his response, basically said, well, as I'm trying to simply restrain her, our faces are very close. And, it's conceivable that our heads butted. I did not headbutt her, though. And there's a difference there. So that's what he at least said in that moment. Thanks to you for being here. Yeah, we're gonna keep cruising through. Thank you for the questions. I don't believe her account of things, but it depends on how good she is at doing makeup and what you're using. Well, we still haven't heard from Amber yet, other than, of course, her attorney's opening statement to say, this is basically what we're going to claim. This is how we're going to go about it. This is what you're going to hear from our witnesses. And so that's where it goes back to, well, if you're going to make a statement like, we're going to prove our case that Amber had used this particular makeup palette, which is this Milani cosmetic makeup palette, well, now they need to claw it back a little bit. So, we have an idea of what Amber is going to say. We have an idea of what some of the witnesses are going to say as far as Johnny Depp is controlling and jealous and abusive. And we're gonna listen to some pretty ugly stuff, and we have already. We've listened to some rough audio. We've seen some rough videos, and their personal lives are absolutely being put on display for the whole world to see. Amber's argument seems pretty weak at the moment, seems to revolve around questioning everyone and their mom's ability to identify makeup, but there doesn't appear to be any substance to their claims. So, these are all Johnny's witnesses. Okay, so even with Alejandro that we just heard from, they called Alejandro, and initially it was kind of like, why are they? It seems like he doesn't know anything. But I think really what they did with his testimony was just to have another piece with the rest of the puzzle that they're building to show that everyone who was in the close circle and actually saw Johnny Depp and Amber Heard on a daily basis, all of them are saying, I never saw anything. I never saw any injuries. And the clap back to that from Amber's team, of course, is, well, how would you know? How do you know the makeup that she was using? How do you know the protocol if you didn't actually see it yourself? But, that's kind of where the tug of war is happening here. But I think it still is compelling testimony when you are consistently hearing from all of the core team and other people, right, who weren't even hired by Johnny Depp, right? So, for example, Ben King, the house manager who actually traveled with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and saying, I saw a lot of drinking. I saw a lot of drinking by Amber Heard, right? We're hearing that a whole lot, that she had her own drug use, we don't want to say addiction issues, but that she liked to use recreational drugs and she liked to drink. But we're also hearing that from Johnny as well. Yeah, but she did get out the next day of the altercation with nothing on the face. But anyway, actresses and models know makeup, especially a spokesperson for L'Oreal. She would know the exact brand and probably every detail about a makeup she allegedly used daily. Okay? They're going to have to deal with this bad fact because you're absolutely right. When it comes to someone who's in the entertainment field, number one, you expect that they're going to be wearing makeup pretty frequently. And that is Amber's argument. That's what we're going to hear her say, that as someone who's in the public eye, she is being photographed by paparazzi constantly, especially because she's with Johnny Depp, that, she's not going to leave the house without putting on some kind of makeup. But in more private settings, like, for example, we heard from the island manager yesterday. And the island manager is saying, well, in this much more casual setting, it's a private island. There are no paparazzi to be concerned about. It seemed like Amber never really wore makeup. And in that instance, I didn't see any bruises. I didn't see any swelling. But, this kind of bad fact of, wouldn't she know the product that she was using? Wouldn't she be able to tell her attorney? And she was the one that told the attorney that this is the product that I used during our relationship. All good points. So as far as kind of paying attention, I called this out with video testimony. Video testimony can be a little draggy. It can be a little difficult to watch. Like when we were hearing video testimony from Johnny Depp's doctor, it just drones on and it's a little tough to get through, not just for us as viewers, but also for the jury. But nonetheless, you have to go through the process because this is the evidence that is being entered into evidence so that at the conclusion of trial, the jury will be able to review everything. And that's why the time that they spent to actually review everything may end up taking several weeks because we're going through a lot. We're going through long periods of video, deposition, testimony, as well as, these different video clips, of different audio clips. And we are barely into this trial. We have 7 weeks total to get through. And we are just at the early stages of week 3 as well. Did any of them go to rehab after the relationship? What we heard from Johnny was that he has essentially done like a detox, right? If not once, twice. So he's done a detox, but he's never formally gone to rehab. And I think that in the opening statement for Amber Heard, that was something that they emphasized. And just to say, for him to be like waving his little white flag of, I've gone and detoxed, I'm all better, or, that I'm not basically this ongoing addict with these rage problems, you can't believe him. Don't believe his charismatic movie star Hollywood persona that the majority of the population has been led to believe he actually is this monster. And we heard that word. He's a monster, not only in the opening, but it had some discussion in Johnny Depp's, cross-examination. What does monster mean? And we still don't know because Johnny kind of went off on this tangent. We don't know whether he was talking about, being a monster and that when he's not sober, the certain person comes out. At certain points, it kind of seemed like the monster was sobriety in itself. So we're still not clear on that. But the point just being, there has been no rehab for Johnny Depp specifically. And it sounds like so far, they're not really painting Amber's use of drugs as, an addiction, but that she just would drink heavily and she did take drugs. And I think that just went to the extent that Amber was the one being aggressive, to the extent that she was the one being violent. She was drinking and taking drugs. If Amber really is borderline personality disorder, I'm sure she could be very manipulative and enraged towards Johnny, and was probably abusive to him and made him feel like the crazy one during their relationship. I only say that as someone living with BPD for 30 plus years. Okay, so we heard from the forensic psychologist yesterday, who testified that she believed that Amber was borderline personality disorder, and kind of went through what are the symptoms or indicators of someone who has that kind of disorder, and just talking about, they're very charming and lovely until someone crosses them, until they don't feel that their needs are being taken care of. And so they'll go from holding a significant other on a pedestal and treating them very well to, in a split second, becoming very enraged and treating that person like they're nothing. So it was very, compelling testimony for sure, and persuasive testimony. But I'm sure that Amber Heard's team did a similar kind of evaluation of Johnny Depp. And I'm sure we're going to be hearing something very similar as far as, what are Johnny Depp's quirks? What are the things that potentially qualify him to be this monster that they're describing, that potentially he is abusive? So, like I said, this is definitely going to get more ugly before it gets better. But it was pretty interesting just to hear about the examination that the forensic psychologist did of Amber Heard. I guess it was like a 14-hour total interview. And so she's looking at different markers of how Amber is responding and what her personality type is, and kind of leaning more towards like her being narcissistic, to being very motivated by her own needs over others. And so it kind of went to this common thread that we're hearing, that maybe, Amber was very ambitious for her career. She wasn't listening to Johnny, and that ended up being a point of frustration in their relationship. But also that Amber just seemed to be very toxic for Johnny. I think as we're continuing to go through this, the questions of how much did she push him? And did she push him enough that he snapped? And he did some of these things that she's talking about. We don't know, but that's what we're going to hear from Amber Heard's team. But either way, I think it's pretty clear to all of us that the relationship was in fact very toxic. And we heard audio from Amber that when Johnny Depp would try to retreat from fights, he would try to leave just so that there'd be time to cool down, which seemed to be just kind of what he does when there's confrontation, that Amber would not want him to leave. And we heard from the therapist, who said, in fact, she would actually hit Johnny to get him to stay. And so in one of those audio recordings, we heard Amber herself saying, don't leave, and becoming very upset, and, saying just very charged words like, the stress of you leaving, the stress of you not sitting here and dealing with this is killing me. I'm literally going to die. So we talked a lot about that in prior streams. Let's keep going. Do you think this is likely to come down to the technicality that Johnny isn't specifically mentioned in Amber's article when it comes to defamation claims, which is what we are dealing with these cases? Each party is claiming defamation by the other. As it relates to Johnny Depp's claim against Amber Heard that she defamed him, this goes back to that Washington op-ed that she wrote in 2018, where she talked about being the survivor of abuse. And Johnny Depp, although not specifically mentioned in the article, alleges that from statements that she had made previously, that basically everyone knew what she was talking about, and that she was talking about the fact that Johnny Depp himself had abused her. And so from that, we talk about damages. So he's saying, you did this thing, but why does it matter? Well, it matters because following that thing, Johnny Depp lost jobs, right? They didn't renew him to then be Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean #6, and so on and so forth. So he was talking about the fact that this has ruined his career. And even if he's, quote unquote, vindicated because he wins, he is alleging that his career is nonetheless over. and the damage has already been done. And so a big part of this, from what Johnny Depp is saying, is that he just wants an opportunity to be heard. And he just wants to be able to tell his side of the story. Now, like we talked about, there is a chance that, at the end of this, the jury says, you both lose. You both abused each other. No one wins. And that's the risk. You never know the outcome of a trial. And so that's the risk that you take. You have put your lives and the outcome of the case into the hands of a jury of your peers. He was supposed to be in Fantastic Beasts, yes. And unfortunately, he was dropped from that. Now, as far as why, right, there was a lot of testimony about Pirates of the Caribbean and allegations that, he was drunk, right? So there's a lot of discussion about Johnny Depp and his drinking habits and his drug use habits. And there's no question that he liked to drink, and there's no question that he liked to use drugs. But did this lead to abuse, right? If that's what they're trying to allege. Or conversely, as it relates to his loss of jobs, was it the reason that he lost his job? Right? This is the reason that Disney no longer wanted to work with him because he was late to set. Maybe he wasn't in his right state of mind even when he did show up. And that's important. That's right, Ryan. Johnny says he just wants to be heard. All right, guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then I'm going to come back and start this live stream again. And I'm just going to keep going. I think this is going really well. So I think they're coming back at 11 a.m. PST. So that would be 1 p.m. EST. I'm not sure where you guys are watching, but basically about 40 minutes from now, I will probably start this a few minutes before they get started. So make sure you come back, and I will see you guys shortly.